I want to tell you something that I think most of the people covering this conflict do not fully understand. And I say that not to be dismissive. I say it because the gap between what is being reported and what is actually happening right now is larger than at any point in the last 60 days. Something major is about to change. And the evidence for it is not in Trump's Truth Social posts. It is not in the shooting orders. It is not in the ship seizures or the blockade numbers or the oil price or the prediction markets. The evidence is in a single meeting that took place today in Muscat, Oman, a meeting between Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Sultan Haitham bin Tariq of Oman, a meeting that was photographed, confirmed, and reported, and almost immediately buried under the noise of Trump canceling Witkoff's Pakistan trip. I want to explain why that meeting in Muscat is the most important diplomatic event of this entire 60-day conflict.
Not the most dramatic, not the most visible, the most important. And I want to start by telling you a story about 2013. In 2013, the United States and Iran were further apart on the nuclear question than they are today. Iran had been under maximum sanctions for years. SWIFT had been cut, oil exports had dropped by 60%, the rial had collapsed, inflation was above 30%, relations were worse than at any point since the 1979 hostage crisis. There was no diplomatic channel, there was no framework, there was no mechanism for the two sides to even acknowledge that the other had said something without it becoming a domestic political crisis in both countries. The reformist President Rouhani had just been elected, promising engagement, but the IRGC was watching, hardliners were watching, and any Iranian diplomat who walked into a room with Americans was taking a political risk that could end his career. And then something happened in Muscat, Oman, that nobody publicly acknowledged for months. Oman's foreign minister, Yusuf bin Alawi, invited small delegations from Iran and America to his country. Not to the same room, to different rooms in the same building. He carried messages between them, not transcripts, messages. The substance of each side's position filtered through an Omani diplomat who both sides trusted to relay without distortion. No press conferences, no leaks, no statements. For months, this exchange continued, and out of those rooms in Muscat, through Oman's quiet and trusted mediation, emerged the preliminary framework that eventually became the 2015 JCPOA, the most significant Iran nuclear agreement in history. I want to be specific about what Oman provides that no other mediator can, because the question I am always asked is why Oman? Why not Qatar, which is a larger and wealthier state? Why not Switzerland, which has been the traditional neutral venue for this kind of diplomacy? Why not Turkey, which has good relations with both sides? The answer is trust. Oman has been trusted by Iran for 4 decades as a country that does not leak, does not take sides between Iran and the Gulf states, and does not use information obtained in mediation for its own political advantage. Oman maintained diplomatic relations with Iran through every period when other Gulf states were cutting ties. Oman did not join the coalition that blockaded Qatar in 2017. Oman has consistently chosen the path of maximum relationship preservation over maximum alignment with any single power. That record, 4 decades of consistent, quiet reliability, is what makes Oman's channel function in a way no other channel can. And Oman's Sultan Haitham, who met Araghchi today, is not a functionary. He is the head of state of a country that has been the most diplomatically trusted actor in the Gulf for 40 years. When Araghchi meets Sultan Haitham, he is not meeting a foreign minister who can be overruled by his government. He is meeting the sovereign authority of the most trusted mediator in the entire Middle East diplomatic ecosystem. The JCPOA was not born in Geneva. It was not born in Vienna. It was born in Muscat, in rooms that neither side publicly admitted they were in, through a channel that neither side publicly admitted they were using. Arachi met Oman's Sultan Haitham in Muscat today. The same country, the same channel, the same sovereign, the same mechanism. Tell me something is not about to change. Now, let me explain what happened in the 24 hours before that meeting, because the sequence matters, and the coverage has been treating these events as separate stories when they are one story. Trump canceled Witkoff and Kushner's Pakistan trip. He posted on Truth Social that it was too much travel, too much time wasted, Iran's leadership too fractured to deal with, and that he has all the cards and they have none. He suggested Iran call if it wants to talk. He was boarding Air Force One for a return flight to Washington when he made these statements to reporters. He seemed satisfied with the cancellation. He seemed to believe the cancellation was the appropriate response to Iran's behavior in Islamabad. Within 10 minutes of that cancellation, 10 minutes, Iran's foreign ministry sent what Trump himself described to journalists as a much better proposal. Not the same offer, not a reiteration, a better one. And Trump confirmed it to reporters himself, apparently without understanding what that confirmation revealed about Iran's actual diplomatic posture. I want to be precise about what those 10 minutes tell you, because this is the detail that the coverage has moved past too quickly. A foreign ministry that is genuinely fractured, that does not know who is in charge, as Trump characterized it, does not produce an improved diplomatic proposal within 10 minutes of a cancellation. A foreign ministry in chaos does not have an alternative offer ready to deploy on 10 minutes' notice. A foreign ministry whose leadership is confused and divided takes days to respond to a new development, not minutes. The 10-minute response reveals that Iran anticipated Trump's cancellation. The improved offer was prepared in advance. It was written, reviewed, and approved before the cancellation was posted. It was sitting in an outbox, waiting for the right moment to send. When Trump canceled, Iran deployed the prepared offer immediately, not because Iran was scrambling to respond to a surprise, but because Iran had correctly predicted what Trump would do and had prepared for it. This is not the behavior of a fractured government. This is the behavior of a government that is executing a deliberate strategy with exceptional coordination under conditions designed to look like disarray. The apparent chaos, the split between the IRGC and the diplomatic team, the public contradictions, the canceled and recanceled talks, is at least in part a strategic performance designed to make America feel it has the upper hand. And Trump's public confirmation that Iran sent a much better offer within 10 minutes of his cancellation is the clearest proof that behind the performance, Iran's diplomatic machinery is functioning with precision. And then Araghchi did not go home. He did not fly to Tehran to report to his superiors. He flew to Muscat. He met Oman's Sultan. He will return to Pakistan on Sunday, and then he will fly to Moscow, Pakistan, Muscat, Pakistan again, Moscow. 4 stops, 4 days, one coordinated diplomatic offensive, and the Western press is calling it confusion. Let me now explain specifically what Oman does that no other mediator can do, because I think this is the piece that is most consistently misunderstood in the analysis I read in Western media. Pakistan is a public mediator. Pakistan holds press conferences. Pakistan issues statements. Pakistan's foreign ministry announced when Araghchi's delegation arrived where they were staying, who they met. The entire Pakistan channel operates in daylight. That visibility is both its value and its limit. In a public channel, both sides have to defend publicly whatever they are known to be discussing. If Iran's delegation is seen walking into a room with American diplomats, both sides face immediate domestic political pressure about what they agreed to. The public channel produces accountability. It also produces constraints. Oman is a private mediator. Oman operates in the dark by design and by reputation. Oman's foreign minister has a 40-year history of carrying messages between Iran and America without either side acknowledging the exchange. In 2013, neither the Obama administration nor the Iranian government confirmed the Muscat talks were happening until the preliminary framework was nearly complete. The privacy is not a failure of transparency, it is the mechanism. Both sides can say things to Oman that they cannot say to each other publicly, and Oman can relay the substance without either side having to defend the statement they just made. When Araghchi says something to Sultan Haitham today, that statement does not appear on IRNA. It does not get posted on X. It does not require Iran's president to defend it, or the IRGC to accept it, or Iran's parliament to endorse it. It enters a diplomatic space where it can be tested against American positions without creating domestic political consequences for either side. That is why the Oman channel can move faster than the Pakistan channel. Pakistan requires both sides to acknowledge what they are doing. Oman requires nothing, and nothing is sometimes the condition under which everything becomes possible. Now, let me address Trump's "we have all the cards" statement directly, because I have heard it 3 times in the last 48 hours, and I think it deserves a direct response. Trump said, "We have all the cards, they have none." I want to inventory the cards as they actually exist in April 2026, not as a political exercise, as an analytical one. America's cards: 2 aircraft carrier groups, 19 warships, a blockade that has turned back 37 ships, a shoot to kill order for mine laying boats, the threat of resumed strikes on power plants and bridges, and the specific demand that Iran's nuclear program be dismantled and its enriched uranium handed over. Iran's cards: physical control of the northern shore of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil moves every single day, a mine laying capacity that has required America to triple its mine sweeping operations, a nuclear stockpile that American intelligence says could reach weapons grade in weeks, the IRGC, which is operating independently of the diplomatic track and which no ceasefire has successfully constrained for 60 days. China's full financial infrastructure, SEIPs, the shadow fleet, the satellite, the strategic reserves, which has kept Iran's economy functioning throughout 60 days of maximum American pressure. Russia's uranium custodianship offer, which Trump rejected but which remains on the table and which Iran is flying to Moscow to keep alive. And the Oman Channel, which is the only mechanism that has historically produced Iran-America agreements, and which Araghchi is loading today with an improved proposal that Trump himself described as much better. I will let you assess which side has the cards. But let me say something more specific. The card Trump is missing, the card that his rejection of Russia's uranium offer has left him without, is a solution to the nuclear disposal problem. Any deal that ends this conflict requires Iran's enriched uranium to go somewhere. America has said Iran cannot keep it. Iran will not give it to America. Russia offered to take it. Trump said no. That decision leaves America without a mechanism for the most technically necessary element of any agreement. Araghchi is flying to Moscow after Muscat. He is going to Moscow specifically to keep Russia's uranium offer alive, to ensure that the mechanism Trump rejected remains available as a fallback. Because without it, there is no technical path to a deal that America can call a win. And Araghchi knows this, and he is flying to Moscow to ensure that when America eventually realizes it needs the Russian mechanism, the mechanism is still there. That is strategic patience. That is not having no cards. That is holding a card that the other side has already said it does not want, but that the other side cannot afford to let expire. Let me now explain what I believe the next 10 days look like, because the sequence of Araghchi's tour, Islamabad, Muscat, Islamabad again, Moscow, has a logic to it that I want to make explicit. And I want to address directly something I hear Western analysts saying that I think is analytically mistaken. The Western analysis says Iran is fractured, the IRGC and the diplomatic team are at war with each other. The mixed signals, foreign minister saying open, parliament speaker saying closed, IRGC seizing ships, diplomatic team trying to negotiate, represent a government that cannot make decisions, and therefore America should wait for Iran to sort itself out before engaging. I want to suggest that this analysis, while partially accurate in its description of the internal dynamics, is completely wrong in its prescription. Yes, there is tension between Iran's diplomatic track and the IRGC. I have been saying this for 60 days. The IRGC removed Ghalibaf from his negotiating role because he was willing to include the nuclear issue, the issue the IRGC most wants to protect, in talks. The IRGC stopped the delegation from boarding the plane to Islamabad at the last minute by sending a message from Khamenei's inner circle ruling out nuclear discussions. These internal tensions are real. I do not deny them. But here is what the Western analysis misses. Those internal tensions are not unique to this conflict. They are the permanent condition of Iranian foreign policy. The IRGC has vetoed diplomatic progress before. It vetoed the JCPOA's implementation at multiple points. It was the IRGC's skepticism about American intentions, ultimately proven correct when Trump walked out in 2018. That is the institutional memory driving the current hardline position. The IRGC is not an irrational actor. It is an institution that draws rational conclusions from historical experience. What the Oman Channel does is solve the IRGC problem without solving it directly. It does not require the IRGC to endorse the negotiations publicly. It does not require the IRGC to approve the terms before they are discussed. It creates a space where Iran's diplomatic team can test terms privately, receive American responses privately, and bring a near complete framework back to Iran's leadership, including the IRGC, as a fait accompli that is much harder to reject than an ongoing negotiation that can be blocked at any stage. The 2013 Muscat process worked exactly this way. Rouhani's team negotiated the preliminary framework without the IRGC having veto power over each exchange. By the time the framework was complete enough to present to Iran's leadership, rejecting it would have required explaining publicly why Iran refused terms it had privately helped shape. The Oman Channel, in other words, creates facts on the ground diplomatically before the hardliners can intervene to prevent them. This is why Araghchi flew to Muscat today, not to produce a deal in Muscat. To produce a framework in Muscat that Iran's leadership, including the IRGC, will have a much harder time rejecting than the ongoing public negotiations that the IRGC can veto at will. The first Islamabad visit was for public record. Iran appeared in Pakistan. The public channel is loaded with Iran's formal position. The Muscat visit is for substance and deniability. Oman has Iran's improved proposal. The back channel is now loaded. American interlocutors can receive and respond to Iran's terms without either side acknowledging the exchange. The second Islamabad visit on Sunday is for synchronization. By Sunday, Oman will have relayed America's initial back-channel response. Araghchi will update Pakistan's mediation with whatever the Oman exchange has produced. The public and private channels are synchronized. The Moscow visit is for alignment. Russia receives the complete picture and takes it to Beijing. By the time Trump lands in China in 3 weeks, Xi will know what Iran's actual terms are. Russia will have explained America's actual private responses. The three parties who are not Trump will have compared notes. America arrives at the Beijing summit as the last to know the full state of the negotiation it has been conducting. This is not chaos. This is one of the most sophisticated diplomatic sequences I have seen in decades of watching Iranian foreign policy. Let me close with what I think will happen. And I want to be clear that this is my assessment, an analytical inference from the facts I have described, not a guarantee. I believe a deal is closer than at any point since the ceasefire began on April 5th, not because the public channel in Islamabad succeeded. It did not, and I am not claiming otherwise. Because the Oman Channel is now loaded with an improved Iranian proposal that both sides can use without publicly defending it, and because Iran is actively constructing the Russia-China-Oman alignment that any deal will require to survive both domestically in Iran and internationally. The specific signals I am watching over the next 10 days. First, whether oil drops toward $90. Brent crude is above $100 right now. Traders who bet real money on geopolitical outcomes are pricing in continued conflict. If oil starts falling toward 90 before any public announcement is made, it means people with real money and real information have started pricing in a deal coming through the Oman Channel. That is the earliest and most reliable signal. Second, whether any American official mentions Oman by name. The Obama administration never mentioned Oman by name during the 2013 back channel process. If a Trump administration official mentions Oman obliquely, references ongoing diplomatic contacts, or multiple channels of communication without naming them, that means the Oman Channel has produced something substantial enough to be obliquely acknowledged without being specifically confirmed. Third, whether Russia reconfirms the uranium offer after Araghchi's Moscow visit. Russia made the offer publicly. Trump rejected it publicly. If Russia reconfirms the offer publicly after receiving Araghchi's briefing in Moscow, it means the offer is being actively integrated into a framework rather than just held in reserve. Russia reconfirming after Moscow means the uranium disposal mechanism is moving from background option to foreground element of a deal. Fourth, and most important, whether the Beijing summit in 3 weeks produces any language referencing Iran. If Xi and Trump issue a joint statement that includes even a general reference to regional stability, nuclear non-proliferation, or the importance of diplomatic resolution to the Gulf crisis, every word of that statement will have been pre-negotiated between Moscow and Beijing in the 10 days between Araghchi's Moscow visit and Trump's arrival in China. A single sentence in a Beijing joint communique referencing Iran would mean the deal is essentially done and the public announcement is being prepared. Something major is about to change. Araghchi met Oman's Sultan today. In 2013, that channel produced the JCPOA. I am not saying a deal will be signed this week. I am saying that the mechanism that has historically produced every significant Iran America agreement is now loaded with Iran's best available offer in the hands of the most trusted mediator in the Middle East, with a Russian backstop for the nuclear disposal problem and a Chinese summit as the diplomatic terminus for whatever agreement emerges. Watch what follows, because what follows Muscat is either a breakthrough or the decision by both sides that war is the only remaining language. And Iran did not fly its foreign minister to Oman to choose war.